we're going to talk about the Star Warsification of the Lord of the Rings. It's looking like nightmare fuel so far. Basically, Amazon and Warner Brothers are going to be battling it out for who can ruin the Lord of the Rings in a worse way. I already saw this comment from Amazon executive Jennifer Salke, who is still shilling for Rings of Power. She said, "We'll see. We love our original series. We're extremely proud of it and invested long term. So we definitely think there's enough fan love to sustain ours for a long time." Meaning she thinks Rings of Power has enough fandom to continue for many seasons down the line, which they already are contractually obligated to do.
There's enough.
But she's like delusional enough to still be telling us that they have dedicated fans.
I feel like she's saying the fans love Lord of the Rings enough where we can fuck up 3, maybe 4 more times
And they'll thank us.
before the juice is no longer there. Yeah, you're right. And they'll thank us.
I'll ruin the content that you love, and you will thank me and be happy, or else you're a bigot.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like the media, the entertainment press will write glowing reviews. The fans, a lot of the fans will hate it, and they'll call those fans all the terrible
That's exactly
names.
what it was. Yeah. I saw like so many positive reviews for Rings of Power while it was still releasing, and it was just they were marched in lockstep to support a mega corporation's bastardization of the original works.
I'm curious as to how many new viewers Rings of Power attracted. Like, how many people were not fans of Tolkien?
We talked about this.
I haven't.
And they like
watched any.
astroturfed the numbers on purpose. They hid the drops week to week on purpose and like obscured the numbers, fudged the numbers so that it would look like, it was growing steadily. They also delayed the time it took for bad reviews to show up on the page. What was it, like a whole week?
Probably all
72 hours.
This is all tied to the whole, like, if this doesn't do well, our streaming service is probably going to die.
Well, no,
They said it has to do well.
Yeah.
Like they have no other choice but to make it at least seem like it's succeeding.
Yikes.
And
Well,
that's why she's like,
Amazon has problems. I mean, Brett can tell you how much he hates their player, but like they really don't have content, and that subscription,
unless they buy it.
But that subscription only used to pay for Amazon Prime, like the free 2-day shipping. And then they're like, oh, but you also get like this catalog of movies and TV to watch. So it's like they're bleeding. They really do. I mean, if I've ever heard someone speak the truth, it's we need this to work, and that's
What did they spend on this series again? Like $250 million?
500 million.
No, yeah, 500 million
Total?
altogether because of the first of all, like what they paid the estate, Tolkien's estate for the property.
Oh.
Not the entirety of it,
It was
but
like $1
part of
billion
it.
all in, but 500 million, after paying.
But yeah,
$1
$250 million just for the
billion.
production itself.
$1 billion for something that everybody hates.
Yeah, and they also, in their contract with the estate, are required to continue it for at least 5 years, I think. So, yeah, and also I was like shocked at the time that they hadn't even started filming the second season when the first season was out, which is not normal. Like you're normally, if you have faith that a show is going to continue, you're already filming the second season before the first season
it's a trend
is
we're
finished
seeing, though.
releasing.
You know, streaming services will drop you after a season or two, and there will be 2 to 3 year gaps in between seasons.
Yeah.
I don't know who started this trend, but it's very common now.
Yeah.
Many, like Stranger Things was like 2 years before in between its last 2 seasons. Something ridiculous like that.
Next Walking Dead territory of like people just begging you to end the show.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, if it's taken that long, I lose interest. You know. So.
Yeah, especially if it's a story that you're supposed to be keeping up with. It's like,
I lost interest a long time. Stranger Things. But most people like lost interest in The Walking Dead at like season 4 or 5. Anyway, we already mentioned this before on the show, but Warner Brothers they've confirmed they're planning to do more Lord of the Rings movies, and any Lord of the Rings fan was just like cringing at that because, like no matter who does it, it's basically guaranteed to be mishandled. Peter Jackson was the only person that could have done it, and that's just luck, honestly. So they said there are no scripts yet, but
I don't know if it was luck. I think that technology was limited 25 years ago, so he was forced to create things in a creative manner that
more practical
effects. I don't think that's luck at all. I think that now,
well, I mean, like the luck of finding someone who genuinely enjoys the source material and like doesn't despise Tolkien as a person. You could never find that these days.
You could still find that person, but it wouldn't matter because they're not going to have the final say anyways. The studio and the executives will have the final say, and that will become more important. So even if you find people that actually love the material, it doesn't really matter if the executives don't.
An inside source told The Hollywood Reporter that Warner Brothers hopes to turn The Lord of the Rings into a Star Wars-like franchise. That should tell you everything. If you know, like, if you're a Star Wars fan out there, like, and you know what Disney has done to Star Wars, it seems like a death knell for The Lord of the Rings as well. That they're going to make it into a cinematic universe. Disney, anything they touch, they want it to be a cinematic universe, right? So I just watched the first episode of The Mandalorian's 3rd season last night, and
There's 3 seasons now of The Mandalorian.
yeah, it's crazy how we've gotten this far. And there are parts of that 3rd season that you just can't understand context-wise if you didn't watch Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
They're doing that on purpose so that it's sort of like the MCU. Like, you have to do your homework to understand what's going on. For instance, like the ship that the Mandalorian is in, like, you wouldn't know how he like got that ship if you didn't watch Boba Fett. Like, the expectations are going up for the viewers, and the expectations for the people making the content are consistently just dropping. Like, they don't have to put in any effort.
See, no, but you know, as
Thank you.
that one got me. Yeah, the money gods.
Oh man.
You know, I'll let the Crisis Party finish.
Just give it its moment, you know.
All right. So as you were like talking about all that, I was just thinking about how much work that takes to like keep up with the story. But then I realized, you know, these kids, you know, we already talked about how obese people are.
Yeah.
Youth sports are dying. This is what kids are doing. Right?
Just
This is what the
watching
young
Star
crowd,
Wars.
like this, they have the time and energy. This is their hobby. They're invested. They love watching The Mandalorian and then going to the Book of Boba Fett. And then going
feel
back.
like they're more so watching like Twitch streamers.
They're
and
also
then the
doing
Disney
that.
Star Wars content.
But that's
is
what I'm
for
saying is
millennials.
they live on the internet, like YouTube, Twitch,
And
HBO,
they also haven't even
Hulu.
likely been introduced to the original Star Wars movies. So like,
No,
what
they
makes
don't even
them
know what a
care
VHS
about
player
this?
is. Like, yeah, and someone, I forget who's I had this conversation with, and someone was like, you got to remember what Star Wars did for us as a kid. You know, whether it was the originals, the prequels, or the current day, they've always been made for children. The people who grew up with them in the 70s and 80s did not like the prequels. I grew up with the prequels. I liked them. You know, like I they're not the best. I will never say that, but I won't trash them. You know, I enjoyed them, the movies I grew up with. And then the kids growing up today with the new movies, I don't even know what the name of them for the
Sequel trilogy.
the Rey
Yeah.
trilogy, I guess.
F you Star Wars fans.
I mean, they're making it for kids, you know, and I think people are trying to hold on to it because they grew up with it at one point.
No, because the storylines for both the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy made sense. The storyline for the sequels, none of it made sense. It's the J.J. Abrams set them up for something, and then Rian Johnson took that something,
And
laid it on the ground, and pooped all over it, and peed all over it. And then J.J. Abrams came back and said, what the F am I supposed to do with this? And tried to make it look like a story again, but it was like Frankenstein's story, and it was a mess, and garbage.
But I
It was
still think
all
their
bad.
focus.
And most people don't even care about that though, because they're not even paying attention to the story. They just like turn on the movie or the
Yeah.
TV show and turn brain off.
Most people are dumber than average.
But I
The
think
Rise of Skywalker made less money, so I do think I do think the actions have consequences, and that's really
Yeah.
Kathleen Kennedy's fault for not being more rigid and actually overseeing the story writing process to make the
Kathleen Kennedy?
trilogy, to make the sequel trilogy with no actual plan is a very 2020 something.
I think I said this before on the show, but there is legitimacy to the argument that original fans make when they say, "Look, the sequel trilogy robbed the way that they did it robbed us of the chance to see Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, and Han Solo in the Millennium Falcon with Chewie and C-3PO and R2-D2, and it's gone forever because
Yeah.
Carrie Fisher passed away." Like that should have been the first thing that they did. J.J. Abrams should have been like, I am going to deliver the scene that everybody wants, and I'm going to do it probably at the beginning of the third act in the movie that I'm doing.
glad you
That's what
said
he should have
that.
done.
I'm glad you said that, because I was just gonna say they should have you in mind, Phil, when they're writing these movies, right? And you and your peers. They should have Brett in mind. They should have me in mind, but they don't.
Yeah,
They don't. They have
don't.
10-year-olds in mind. And even if the movie isn't a kids movie, that's who they're making them for. So it doesn't
Selling
need
the
to make
toys,
sense.
selling the Halloween
no,
costumes.
the toys sold horribly, so they didn't even do that well.
That's why they made Grogu, though. You know,
Like
sell
Lego.
Christmas toys.
Lego's a good example of a company that realized that their target audience grew up. Like their customer base grew up. But the kids nowadays, they're playing Legos, but it's on the phone. Like they're playing Lego Star Wars the video game.
Yeah.
They're not playing. They're not building Lego ships physically, right? And so Lego adapted. They're making the Skylines thing. They're making model White House you can build, right? You can make a 3D globe out of Legos because
Can you
they
make
realized
a Lego Capitol building and
they
Lego
did. Someone actually got
stage an insurrection.
Someone got in trouble. That was
Of
at
it.
January 6th. They got in trouble because they
made that. Yeah, they did.
recently
Oh, I
bought
remember
a
that.
Lego model. Yeah. But Lego adapted. Not everything, but a large portion of their business is still targeting the people that it did in the 80s and the 70s, right? But Star Wars isn't doing that.
Yeah. It looks like this is just going to
Disney's
get
not doing
maybe more confusing than DC in the near future, because Amazon's content and their rights to develop the Rings of Power series and anything that spins off from that is going to be totally separate, like story-wise, from anything Warner Brothers makes.
Yep.
So then you have to ask yourself, like, what from this is canon? If you were paying attention the whole time, you would know none of it is. But, like, I just think it's a sin in and of itself to make something mediocre. Rings of Power sucked. It was awful. If Warner Bros. Makes mediocre to moderately good or serviceable movies in the Lord of the Rings universe, I think that's still kind of doing it a disservice, because the person who made it originally was great and you're not great. I don't think that we have the capacity for greatness anymore. That's why you're riding the coattails of stories that people are dedicated to get eyes on it. Like, you can't just make something new.
People are also more focused on building like a crazy outlandish story than they are actually building characters. And it's like, if you build really good characters, you write really good characters, the story writes itself, And I think we've lost that. I can't name like any really iconic new characters in the last few years.
John
that have
Wick.
been created. He's old though, man. They've put out 4 movies.
In Hollywood terms, 10 years is nothing.
Sure. John Wick, good example.
2014,
Good
so less than
example.
10 years, 8 years.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.